Flint Community Schools says the conversation has changed since the Oxford High School shooting. They say that they're offering social and emotional support to both staff and students, and they're constantly updating building safety protocols. Superintendent Kevelin Jones says even before the shooting at Oxford High School, the district has had metal detectors in place in buildings with grades 7 through 12.
Flint has just been known to just try to prevent situations from coming up, try to prevent unsafe weapons to come into the building, or weapons at all to come into the building.
Jones says it is not out of the question to add these metal detectors, possibly at the elementary schools. He says their #1 goal is to keep everyone safe.
We have them open their backpacks if they have closed backpacks, purses. We don't go through people's things and put our hands down and things, but if we see something that can cause an issue, we definitely will stop that scholar.
An issue was stopped last week with a 17-year-old student at Flint Southwestern Classical Academy. Jones says the student made an inappropriate comment and the school handled the situation. Now the student is being charged by the Genesee County prosecutor.
We have done the things possible to keep our scholars safe from threats of that nature, and we will continue to do so.
Superintendent Jones says that they are looking at different trainings for both their staff and students when it comes to safety. They're also asking families to come out to their community forums and add any input on what they want to see safety-wise in the schools.
3 kids actually are being charged with violating the penal code in Saginaw in connection to making these false threats. 2 were already in juvenile detention as the hearing was going on.
It's not a joke, it's not a laughing matter, and you can end up spending your holidays in the juvenile detention facility.
That's the warning Saginaw County Assistant Prosecutor Blair Stevenson is giving to students. But for 3 students, that message came too late. They are currently being charged with making false threats, allegedly stating, quote, "I'm going to shoot the school up," end quote. While the prosecutor's office determined none of the 3 kids had means to do that, the threat alone, they say, is punishable.
It's not worth it. Don't make these threats if you're joking around. This isn't a joke. You're going to end up with a 20-year felony being charged against you, and you're going to end up in the juvenile detention center. It's a tragedy. But I'm here to make sure the public's safe best I can. So that's why we're taking a tough stance on it.
All 3 students are facing terrorism-related charges as a result of the threats. Under the Michigan Penal Code, it states those who make terrorist threats, false or otherwise, could face imprisonment up to 20 years, as well as be fined up to $20,000. Sadly, Stevenson says threats like these have had a drastic increase.
This is definitely a huge uptick in school threats. No doubt about it. This is the most threats I've seen since, in a 2-week time frame in my 9 years that I've been in the prosecutor's office. So this is definitely an extraordinary time for these types of crimes, and they need to come to an end.
He says the 3 students will not be charged as adults for the threats, but they will face serious consequences.
According to Nolan McIntosh from the Midland-based firm McIntosh & Associates, he isn't exactly sure how long it's going to last. But before I touch on that, it has been a roller coaster ride before we've seen widespread cases. But McIntosh says he's not surprised. McIntosh says as different variants are discovered, fear is going to follow. That's why he encourages people not to panic, because the market is going to have volatility or extreme shifts and swings. According to McIntosh, we've seen situations like this one before, such as the Great Depression, and even when the pandemic first began in March 2020. And every time, McIntosh says, we bounce back.
About 80% of the time, the market still returns positive. 20% of the time, on a yearly basis, it goes negative. But through all the volatility, all the shifts and swings in a given year, most of the time the market still comes out positive. That's what we're talking about when it comes to volatility. And lately, obviously, we've seen a lot more where the market goes up one day and then goes down the next day and then goes back up the next day. That's where the volatility comes from.
Now, I asked McIntosh when we could expect to see the stock market hold steady again. I'll have that answer for you shortly.